I'm sharing this story because I need to get it out of my system, but I want to be clear about something up front. I am not asking for advice, and I am not asking for paranormal theories. I am a structural engineer living in Seattle. I deal in physics, load-bearing walls, and concrete facts. I don't believe in ghosts, and I don't believe in monsters. For the last 3 years, I have tried to find a rational explanation for what happened to me in that cabin, but every explanation falls short. I've told this to the police, and I've told this to a therapist who prescribed me heavy anti-anxiety medication. They think I suffered a mental break due to isolation and extreme barometric pressure changes. But I know what I heard. It was December of 2019. My fiancée, Sarah, and I had been working 80-hour weeks for months, and we decided we needed to disconnect. We rented a remote cabin deep in the Bitterroot Mountains of Montana. When I say remote, I mean it was 5 miles up a private logging road that didn't even show up on Google Maps. The plan was simple. No internet, no emails, just a fireplace, some books, and silence. Sarah had a last-minute crisis at the hospital where she works, so she had to stay behind for an extra 2 days. I drove up first in my truck, loaded with supplies from Costco, to get the generator running and the cabin warmed up. The drive up was treacherous. The sky was that heavy, bruising shade of gray that signals a massive storm, and the local radio was screaming about a historic blizzard. By the time I got the fire roaring, the snow had started. For the first 2 days, it was paradise. It was just me and the silence. But on the third afternoon, the blizzard hit in earnest. The temperature plummeted to 20 degrees below zero. The wind was so loud it felt like the cabin was groaning under the pressure. Visibility out the window was absolute zero, just a wall of white. Around 7 p.m. the satellite phone rang. It was the only link I had to the outside world. It was Sarah. She sounded frustrated, and I could hear the background noise of a TV and a heater. She told me her flight into Missoula had been delayed, and with the highway patrol closing the mountain passes due to the blizzard, she was stuck. She said she was checking into a motel in Great Falls and would try to make the drive up the mountain the next morning if the plows came through. I was disappointed, obviously, but mostly I was relieved she wasn't trying to drive in this weather. We chatted for a bit about mundane things. She told me she was going to order a burger from room service and watch a movie. We said our I love yous, and I hung up. The silence that rushed back into the cabin after that call was heavy. It felt physical. I made myself a drink and sat by the fire, reading a book. It was around 9:30 p.m. when it started. I was dozing off on the couch when a sound pulled me out of my sleep. Knock, knock, knock. 3 distinct, rhythmic raps on the heavy oak front door. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked at my watch. It was pitch black outside and the wind was howling at 50 miles per hour. No one should be up here. It was impossible. The snow on the driveway was waist deep by now. I grabbed the hunting rifle I kept by the mantel. Out here, you worry about bears, not people, and walked slowly to the door. I stood there listening to the wind buffering the wood and shouted, "Who is it?" For a moment, there was nothing. Then, I heard Sarah's voice. "Babe, it's me. Open up, I'm freezing." My hand instinctively went to the deadbolt. A wave of relief washed over me. My first thought was that she had decided to surprise me. She was stubborn like that. Maybe she had rented a heavy-duty Jeep and pushed through the storm. But my hand stopped inches from the lock. A sudden, violent physical sensation hit me. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was a biological rejection. My skin started to itch. It was a prickly, burning sensation that started at the base of my neck and shot down my arms. Every hair on my body stood up. It was my lizard brain screaming at me that something was wrong. I leaned closer to the door, keeping the chain locked. "Sarah, how did you get here? The road is closed." The reply came instantly. "The car broke down at the turnoff. I walked up. Please, Mike, let me in. It's so cold." My blood turned to ice. The turnoff was 5 miles away. 5 miles. In deep snow, uphill, in sub-zero temperatures. If she had walked that, she wouldn't be speaking in calm, complete sentences. She would be hypothermic, gasping, slurring her words. But the most terrifying part was the audio quality. The wind outside was deafening. If she was standing on the other side of that door, she would have to scream to be heard. But her voice sounded clean, flat. It sounded like she was speaking into a high-quality microphone in a soundproof booth. There was no wind in her voice. I stepped back from the door, raising the rifle. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I pulled my cell phone out of my pocket. I had 0 bars of cellular service, but I was connected to the cabin's satellite Wi-Fi. I opened FaceTime and hit Sarah's contact. Please pick up, please pick up. The ringing sound echoed in the empty cabin. Then the screen connected. Sarah's face appeared. She was wearing a face mask, lying in a hotel bed with a beige headboard behind her. She was eating a French fry. "Hey, honey," she smiled, confused. "Everything okay? I was just about to fall asleep." I stared at the screen, then at the door, then back at the screen. My stomach dropped. I felt nauseous. "Sarah," I whispered, my voice trembling, "do not hang up. I need you to listen to me very carefully. There is someone outside the cabin. They are mimicking your voice." Sarah's smile vanished instantly. "What? What are you talking about?" Outside, the thing at the door seemed to realize I was on the phone. The polite knocking stopped. The entire door frame shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling beams. Then the voice screamed. It was Sarah's voice, but it was wrong. It was distorted, stretched out like a corrupted audio file. "Open the door, Mike! That woman is a fake! I am Sarah! I am cold! Let me in! Let me in! Let me in!" Sarah on the phone heard it. She started screaming in terror. "Mike! Oh my God, Mike, what is that? Is that me?" "I don't know," I yelled, backing away into the kitchen, keeping the gun trained on the door. "I'm not opening it!" The screaming stopped abruptly. The banging stopped. For 10 seconds, there was absolute silence. Then, I heard the doorknob slowly turn. The metal grinded as the lock held fast. I watched the brass knob twisting back and forth, click-clack, click-clack. Then came the sound that haunts my nightmares. The thing outside started to laugh. It was mimicking the exact laugh Sarah had given me on the phone earlier, but it was looping it, over and over, mechanically. Then the footsteps moved. Heavy, crunching footsteps on the wooden porch. It was walking around the house. It was heading toward the large picture window in the living room. I dropped to the floor, crawling behind the kitchen island. "Sarah, stay on the line," I whispered. I watched the curtains of the living room window. A shadow blocked out the porch light. Someone was standing there, pressing against the glass. I could hear the sound of fingernails, or something sharp, scratching against the window pane. Scritch, scritch, scritch. "Mike." The voice came through the glass now. It wasn't Sarah's voice anymore. It was a guttural, wet sound, like a throat full of fluid. "I can see your heat. It looks so warm in there." I spent the entire night huddled in the corner of the kitchen, rifle raised, with Sarah on the video call. She stayed with me until dawn. The thing circled the cabin all night. Sometimes it would scratch the walls, sometimes it would whisper my name. When the sun finally came up, the storm broke. The silence returned. I waited until noon when I heard the sound of a snowplow engine way down the mountain before I dared to open the door. I walked out onto the porch. The air was crisp and cold. I looked for footprints. I expected to see boot prints or bare feet or animal tracks. I expected to see something that proved a maniac had been stalking me. But the snow on the porch was pristine. The snow in the yard was a smooth, unbroken sheet of white. There wasn't a single footprint leading up the steps. There wasn't a single track around the window where I had seen the shadow. I stood there, my brain trying to process the impossible. If there were no tracks, where was it? Then I looked at the front door. Around the brass doorknob, the wood was scratched, deep gouges like something had been clawing at the lock mechanism with a knife or sharp nails. But the scratches weren't on the outside of the door. They were on the inside. I threw up right there in the snow. I didn't even pack my bag. I got in my truck and drove down the mountain, risking my life on the icy road. The police said it must have been a squatter. They theorized that someone had broken in before I arrived and was hiding in the attic or the crawl space the whole time. They said the isolation and the cold probably made him snap. But I know the truth. I checked every room when I arrived. And even if it was a person, how did they mimic Sarah's voice so perfectly? How did they know what she said on the phone? I don't know what was in that cabin with me, but I know that when I heard that knocking, it wasn't trying to get in. It was trying to get me to open the door so it could get out.